Hello everyone, this is Soul with another 8.2 video, probably one of the last ones that I'll be doing, and it's brought to you by this channel's awesome patrons. This one's going to be a bit anecdotal. I'm going to go over all the favorite pieces of gear and whatnot that I will be farming for in this patch, but there should be still a few things that you can pick up regardless of your class, your role, or your playstyle. So with that said, let's just get right into it. What am I going to be working on during this patch? So on day one of the patch, there's a lot of essences that I won't have an opportunity to work for because they're going to come from activities that we do during Season 3, which will start 2 weeks later. So that kind of sucks, but on the bright side, that means that you can put your focus on other things without feeling like your first week is super overwhelming. All of us are going to get Concentrated Flame by default. It's the first essence that we get. But the one I'll also be working towards is the Null Barrier, which you can buy off of the Quartermaster in Mechagon as soon as you hit Honored with your Mechagon rep. And from practice with some above average farming, this will take less than a week to do. This essence gives an active and passive defensive ability against magic damage. On top of that, at higher ranks it cleanses debuffs, which can make this a pretty powerful essence in arenas. The Memory of Lucid Dreams is unlocked by just completing Azerite content, like the campaign and completing activities in the zone. This essence can be great in terms of increasing the uptime on our active mitigation. Reality Shift is a lot more situational. It gives you a delayed teleport on a 1-minute cooldown, and I can sort of see myself using this like a heroic leap if I wanted some strong initial threat or to gain some extra kiting distance. To get this, you only need to complete a quest that you pick up in Azerite and kill 25 members of the opposite faction in war mode. The Aegis of the Deep is unlocked through Azerite rep. This essence is arguably decent for big pulls like places like Mythic Plus, if that's something that you're still going to be doing before Season 3. Personally, I find that Concentrated Flame doesn't quite give enough in comparison to the more defensive essences, so I think investing your time into getting the Null Barrier will be well worth the work before Season 3 begins. After the season starts though, there's going to be a lot more stuff to get, so I'll talk about what's going to work best for tanking. Azeroth's Undying Gift is a massive defensive cooldown. It does require defeating Ashara in a raid, but you might get this the first day or week of Season 3. Suppressing Pulse is a really powerful slowing essence. It can be great if you're a flag carrier in Battlegrounds, and it gives paladins another snare in case they forgot to spec for Consecrated Ground. This essence is a bit tougher to get. You have to complete a quest that requires winning a Battleground, Epic Battleground, and PvP Island Expedition, so good luck. The Vision of Perfection is a great essence to increase your uptime on your class's major cooldown. In my case, it's Avenging Wrath, and the guaranteed boost to my next heal whenever it fires off, because it actually works. This essence requires farming the Operation Mechagon instance. My plan is to swap between these essences depending on the content that I'm doing. Luckily, many of these also have strong minor traits to pick up on. For defensive purposes, I'll be swapping between Azeroth's Undying Gift, Suppressing Pulse, Vision of Perfection, and Null Barrier. And whatever's not going into the main slot is going to go into the passive slots. I'm going to touch really quick on the Azerite Traits in 8.2, and to be honest, they might not be ideal for you, but they're worth a mention, especially because non-raiders and dungeon folk can get access to all 3 of the new traits through benthic gear. There are a few disadvantages though. There's only 1 piece of benthic gear per slot per armor type, meaning that while you can have all 3 Azerite traits activated, you're not going to be able to stack them without looking towards the Eternal Palace raid for additional pieces. That said, of the 3 new traits, I at least wanted to be interested in the Undulating Tides, which has some defensive and offensive abilities. Unfortunately, for a paladin, you can't stack this 3 times without sacrificing Inspiring Vanguard, which is a really powerful trait and pretty much a no-brainer for being a well-kitted tank. It's most likely that I'll craft the new 445 engineering helmets, and I'll just skip out on these Azerite traits altogether because I'm better off focusing on a trait like Bulwark of Light than Undulating Tides, and that's kind of a bummer. For non-paladins though, your mileage might vary. The Operation Mechagon instance also provides a unique trait called the Clockwork Heart. It increases all your secondary stats for 12 seconds at 1 proc per minute. There are no helmets that drop from the dungeon for anybody, so this can only stack twice, but it's still a pretty strong buff to consider holding on to. Now let's talk trinkets. There's only 1 new trinket available day 1 of the patch, and that's the customizable Mechagon trinket that you've heard so much about. Ultimately, it just turns out to be an okay trinket for tanking. The trinket includes 3 different colored punch card slots, which provide different effects. The blue card can be whatever you want, it's just kind of a passive quality of life sort of thing. The yellow card can be what your favorite secondary stats are. My choice for the red card is the Trajectory Analysis card, which grants dodge when hit. But let's move on to what trinkets you can look forward to in Season 3. Operation Mechagon does offer a trinket itself, but it's not all that cool. The modular platinum plating gives armor. Woo woo. I'm gonna leave that up there for a few seconds so you can make your own disappointed face, and let's move on. The Eternal Palace offers a pretty wide variety of both defensive and offensive trinkets, but for now I'm just going to focus on what's within the tank specialization. The Bloodthirsty Urchin has this interesting mechanic of banking a portion of the damage that you take and heals you based on what was stored. It sounds kinda cool, but it basically translates to a constant heal over time as long as you're tanking something. The Chain of Suffering seems kind of fun. It's basically Blessing of Sacrifice, but in reverse. Instead of choosing someone and absorbing some of their damage taken, you instead choose someone to absorb a lot of damage that you take. This makes me wonder what happens if you use this trinket and the actual Blessing of Sacrifice ability on the same target at once. Of course, this is a pretty effective trinket when used when you have a co-tank, but for shenanigans you could also use it on someone you secretly hate. Edicts of the Faithless seems to be the most interesting tank trinket, at least defensively. It gives either a physical or a magic absorb that you can swap between, and it stacks up to 10 times. So theoretically, in a fight longer than 2.5 minutes, every 15 seconds, you'll get a shield that absorbs anywhere between 30 and 60,000 damage, depending on the trinket's item level. Use this with an essence like Null Barrier and Azerite Traits that focus on absorbs, and you'll be a pretty hardy tank against magic damage. Finally, Ashara's Font of Power, which is arguably the most powerful trinket and hence why it drops from the last boss, this doubles up as both a strong tanking and a throughput trinket. The risk is that it requires a 4-second cast to fully unlock its potential, but if you can manage to pull it off, you'll get a massive stat increase for 30 seconds. As a raid lead, I'm going to absolutely love seeing half my raids suddenly stop what they're doing just before Bloodlust goes off while they're standing in fire or who knows what. But hey, they gotta get that parse, right? We've gone through some of the benthic armor, the trinkets, the Azerite traits, but what about rings? Operation Mechagon is going to introduce a unique set of rings that have some neat effects. Logic bands set proc conditions, like using abilities while under half health, or using a number of different abilities on the same target. Bit bands are the actual effect, like dealing damage, healing, or a stat bonus. As a tank, it feels natural to use the logic loop of recursion that sets the condition of using 3 different abilities on the same target. Not so bad. As for the bit band, there are 3 that interest me. I can use the shorting bit band for some extra single target damage, or the protecting bit band for even more magic absorption. Man, like seriously, casters are going to love fighting me in an arena. Or as a bit of personal class fantasy, I can use the rebooting bit band to help add some healing to the group. The drawback of these rings is that they only come from the Mechagon dungeon, which is limited to Mythic 0, aka 415 item level. So, if for you item level is king, you're gonna have to wait until maybe 825 or later, when this dungeon is thrown into the lot of Mythic Plus dungeons. Cause you know that's definitely gonna happen. So that's enough of the instant stuff, let's move on to world content, specifically Nazjatar world content. The main currency in Nazjatar is the Prismatic Monopearl. You can only get a handful each day through rares, treasures, and quests, and there's a lot of stuff to spend it on. Here's where my focus is going to be at. One is to unlock the Abyssal Focus, which gives you access to higher level gear for armor crafters. This is unlocked by using 75 monopearls to access basic crafting. The higher level stuff won't require any more pearls, but will instead require raid materials, similar to the requirements of Sanguisel and Breath of Bonsandi. This time though, you only need these raid materials to upgrade your Abyssal Focus, and that's it. The recipes for this actual gear only need basic materials, it just depends on the condition of your Abyssal Focus. Speaking for myself as a blacksmith and an engineer, I'm going to be focusing on crafting an engineering helmet and blacksmithing legs. I talked a little bit about the benthic gear already when it comes to the Azerite traits available, but there are other notable pieces that I'd like to develop as well, particularly the ones that presumably come from combat allies in Nazjatar. These pieces take up the belt, wrist, and glove slots, which is why I'm not going to bother making a belt as a blacksmith. And in case you non-paladins were wondering, the special attributes on these pieces are the same regardless of armor type. Unfortunately, I don't know the details behind these pieces, like how to get them. I presume that you'll need to level up your follower to a considerably high level, maybe max, in order to get these. If so, completing a full set is going to take a really long time. Now there could be some mechanism where only the first combat ally you max out will give you this gear, and the others won't, or you get all of them, I don't know, but I'm not going to take any of these conclusions off the table. My plan with Mono Pearls is to buy only what's necessary for me, in this case what's needed for the Abyssal Focus and upgraded essences, and then just hold on to pearls. Once I have enough to fully upgrade a piece to the max item level, which is roughly 200 pearls, that's when I'm going to consider upgrading one of the many pieces that I've collected during this time. I'll definitely be using them on the combat ally rewards though, because these pieces seem pretty awesome and unique. So to wrap things up, I'm finding that my character is going to be this crazy, proc-heavy, magic-absorbing juggernaut tank who otherwise has a really wide kit of gear to choose from, depending on the situation. No doubt that even among tanks, there are those out there looking for what gives them the most effective health, the highest mitigation uptime and all that, but otherwise I'm just super excited to have a lot of pieces to collect and play with. So I hope that me sharing my behavior on 8.2 has got you thinking a little bit too, or you otherwise enjoyed listening and watching. Please leave a like and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.